In the previous part of Fall of the Samurai Abridged, we went to attack Tsushima Island, and it was a brutal fight, but we took a little bit of ground. Meanwhile, at home in Nagasaki, a criminal-led rebellion tried to bring us down, but ultimately failed. Our subsequent battles with these Tsushimans proved to be deadly. We lost so many of our troops trying to advance that we ultimately failed, and then another clan declared war on us closer to home. Also, the Tsushimans are still trying to kick us out, so now we need to defend our ports against them. They only attacked from one direction, so that keeps things simple. Our shrapnel shot gets some kills early on, although not all that many because it's doing the classic only target to the edge of the unit bug thing. We need to get all of our troops who are spread out across the castle to start with to concentrate, ready to resist the enemy attack, but I'm not going to deploy near the walls since they have tons of guns and you can see they are willing to just snipe us off the walls. Here I've got some guys in cover behind 3 layers of wall. The enemy are still trying to shoot at them. That's obviously not going to do all that much, so the early gun attacks are resisted in this fashion. Meanwhile, they do have some melee troops coming to climb up. And once they do climb in, we can move forwards to engage them, since now if the gunners want to fire at us, they'll have to shoot through some of their own men, and this seems to persuade the enemy to stop. They start just moving up with the line infantry as well. Now we have some infantry grinds to take, no real advantages to have here other than that we have fight to the death enabled, so we should win one-on-one fights, although it's still on hard difficulty, so our losses will be quite large. Now the line infantry start to climb inside, and this is what we really wanted. Our army's almost entirely samurai and spear levies, so all of these gunners just need to come in and fight in a mass melee. And once they're here, well, we just wait. We don't have any more plays to make, we just need to win the fights eventually. One thing I did do is move a small unit of Negineta Ronin to block the exit from this mass melee. That just means when things rout, we'll grab more kills on them and they won't come back. You can see the melee is just an enormous mess, bodies all over the floor, and with both sides having similar uniforms, it really just looks like both sides are being annihilated, which probably is the case in fact. Anyway, you can see the effect of my little blocking thing here. We're grabbing extra kills as things try to rout away and get stuck here by the looks of things too. So that's handy, and at this stage the battle comes to an end since everything inside the castle chain routes. A decisive victory. We actually killed the entire army, thanks to Shogun 2 being generous with letting you just end the battle and it just saying, well, you probably would have killed them all. So that's that, and some of our casualties will have been among the 2 garrison units we had as well, so it's a little bit better than it looks. All that really matters though is to ask, do we have enough stuff after this fight to counterattack? They've just thrown away a bunch of units. Maybe we can attack them now as a result. Here's me checking out the new danger situation at home. That island over there has 3 settlements on it and they're at war with us. They could easily in one turn just ship themselves over to Nagasaki and have some fun. There was also a rebellion at Nagasaki, you might have noted. Here I found that Tsushima would be willing to take a peace treaty, and this was highly interesting. What I started thinking is maybe I can just somehow take Tsushima itself, the middle settlement. We can vassalize the remaining one, which would increase my honor, and then we'll rush back towards the Fukue warfront. Annoyingly, because of the massive zone of control on this town, I'm not allowed to actually attack it in one turn despite being quite close. So I end up just sitting near it and not much happens. We have to wait and see what the enemy builds during their turn. There was no action from the Fukue, which is nice. The rebels tried to attack, but I've got so much stuff here that I can auto-resolve them, which is really good because I didn't want to get stuck in a cycle where every 3 turns I have to fight the same siege defense to actually hold on to our home territory. So now we can just auto-resolve them, and I'll probably want to leave enough stuff there to keep doing that as we go forward until we find a way to solve that public order issue. Annoyingly, in the next turn you can see the Tsushimans have built up a few units, perhaps moving things over from their 3rd settlement as well, and I figured there's no way we are actually going to take that place if we attack, so it's time to go ahead with the peace treaty deal now. I was able to get some money off it, and a little bit of military access just to make it easier for me to leave. And that's that. We're going to end the war with us having a bit of their island. The issue is going to be here that once our army moves away, it will have negative public order, so we're not going to be able to hold on to it very easily. As for the ships needed to ship me back, they were currently scouting out Fukue because I figured I could take out their fleet to stop them from attacking me. Their fleet is actually sitting off Tsushima bombarding my army, so that's good overall. The enemy can't easily attack me from this setup. we're going to go home, link up with some of these reinforcements, and then try to attack them. This all goes pretty smoothly, so we'll just cut to when I'm sitting in the docks here, ready to go. I've changed the army up. Now it's a bit less reliant on melee stuff. We've got a line infantry line to use, and a line infantry line with a lot of experience as well, since they were recently killing the rebels, so that's handy. We arrive at Goto Island here, and see an opportunity to attack in the middle. Annoyingly, I accidentally landed this agent at first. I thought I'd screwed myself over, but I was able to also land the troops, and they can land immediately in a siege with this small settlement. Even with that little army next to it, that balance bar is good enough for us to just instantly take the place. Or is it? The result of this auto-resolve isn't the sort of result you would get from that balance bar. When the balance bar is that far in your favour, you usually win with literally 0 casualties, something like that. So I think I might have been lied to there and tempted into a battle that was harder than it looked. We did lose a bunch of guys, but we also did take the settlement. Although it's a bit awkward now, because the enemy are to our left and right, so whichever direction we go, we're going to be under threat of being attacked from the other direction. At Tsushima, we did lose that territory we took earlier to rebels, so overall our campaign against Tsushima has been a waste of time, other than to stop us being at war with them for now, so maybe that's something. Here in Nagasaki, I'm actually going to do something a bit counterintuitive. I'm going to take troops out of the unruly garrison to make it more likely to rebel. That's because I want them to rebel at this stage to keep getting more experience on those troops. That way, once we're done with the Fukue stuff, we can go back and have some good units to put into our probably by then very dead army. That's the plan anyway. So yes, now I was wondering which direction I should go in. As I mentioned, there's a danger of going in any one direction and being attacked from the other. In the end, I did this move, which proved to be a kind of best of both worlds setup. First, I moved that small army out of the way by making them retreat. Then I noted that while you can't really see anything, there's a tiny spot just in front of my army where I can set an ambush. By sitting there, I avoid having to fight that battle in front of me, which could be dangerous with only a portion of my force, and I'm still in reinforcement range of the castle. We can kill a few enemies with the fleet just to even things out a tiny bit, and then, because my force is hidden, this tempts the half stack of enemy troops to the west to come over and attack the settlement. Then my guys appear, and the ballast bar this time isn't lying quite so much. We have a gigantic advantage with all of this stuff defending. So that army from over there just dies, and that makes the whole strategic situation nice and easy now. We can safely go to the right and not worry about stuff coming from the left for a few turns at least. The army that was in front of me though unifies together and attacks. But again, because I'm still in reinforcement range of the settlement, we can pull in those other units to join our line, giving us an overall advantage. This time though, I want to do it manually to try and get this nice and clean. In this one, we can use another feature of the mod, these deployable defenses. If you get attacked after standing still for a turn, which I guess ambushing counts as, you can use defenses to make your guys better at ranged fighting, which is handy because we have a whole bunch of line infantry now to put behind them. So we sit back here and wait, obviously, to start off. We're just going to bombard the distant enemy and grab some early kills. I was trying to shoot at their general, or their captain I should say, but their captain was in a very small unit, so I wasn't able to hit him. Here we are a bit later, the enemy move on in, and it's time for some very loud blasting. All down the line we'll start shooting. Shooting at our maximum range won't do all that much, but the reload time on line infantry isn't that long, so there's no advantage for waiting until the enemy get closer, because you can just also shoot at them when they get closer, once you've reloaded. We'll have the advantage here that the enemy are again deploying melee stuff in front of their ranged stuff. That will stop the ranged stuff firing for a bit while we can keep firing, taking out a bunch of the melee units. They do make it to our lines, but these deployable defenses help out again because they're also impassable. The enemy have to go around them, and that causes all kinds of delays and allows our line infantry to keep shooting at point blank range and grab more kills. As a result, all their spear levies die really easily. Here's their captain's unit with some samurai slowly jogging in, far too slow to make it in a frontal charge against line infantry, and down they go. This essentially left a bunch of levy infantry at the back, who after being shot at a few times, chain routed, and that ends the battle. Nice and easy. Unfortunately, when I end the battle, it doesn't kill off those levy infantry, so we haven't taken out this army really. We've killed half of it and lost about 15% of her own force. Don't mind the recording has started message. For some reason it decides to put that into the rendered file just for fun. So yes, we're going to have to fight these guys again, really. We just go on in our turn and attack, and they stand and fight. It's just the other 1,000 troops that we didn't kill in that last battle. Although this time we're attacking, so no fancy defenses to use. Instead though, we did have a nice hill we could use in this battle. The enemy won't move until I deploy my artillery, because of how the AI works, so I had plenty of time to go and set up on the hill. Then we start firing, that makes the enemy come and attack my hill, and we just sit back and wait to see what happens. Because we're on a hill, the angles mean that their melee charge doesn't block the line of sight of their gunners this time, so they can shoot at us and charge at the same time. But the hills also slow their charge down a bit, so we have more chances to shoot those melee infantry before they arrive. I still need to be on guard though. You can see I'm getting ready here to move my melee infantry forward if I need to. But really I don't need to in this case. Their leading unit with their captain, you can see there, is basically dead as they arrive at the front lines, and they just get shot down and rout. And it's going to be a similar deal for the rest of the melee charging infantry. There are only a few of them. These spear levies kind of stop and ponder whether going up the hill is a good idea. They get shot some more and decide that it's not probably the right decision. Then we have to have a shootout with all those levies. We have better gunners, so we should win eventually. Plus, this unit, their best unit of line infantry, can be charged into with my daimyo's unit. Doesn't do as much damage as it looks. I'm guessing this mod increases the momentum of cavalry, but not their charge bonus. So everyone goes flying all over the place, but then just gets back up. We do take out that unit, and I'm going to get out of there since I don't want to get my daimyo killed quite yet. I did mention in the past that getting him killed might be a good idea because he's dishonorable, but we'll see about that later. We don't have many replacements available now, so might not be a good idea to kill off all of our officers. So we go on to win the shootout. Basically we just shot them a bunch of times and then they left. Still haven't quite killed all of them, but we've killed most of them now. We've lost about half our army in the process of those two battles, but maybe it's still enough to go on and hack through the survivors and attack that settlement garrison. This proves to be harder than expected, because the zone of control around the settlement is larger than our movement range because there are no roads here, so this seems to be a bit of a problem with this mod overall. The movement ranges do tend to be shorter than in the base game, and here we actually can't move through their zone of control to attack them even from the edge of it. It's partially because we have artillery in the army which slow you down a bit. For now I just kind of waited, not sure what to do, and here in the next turn, it now says that I can make it, but doing the clicks doesn't seem to have any effect. Our guys don't try. In the end, dropping the artillery allows me to start the siege, and the artillery will be in reinforcement range, so we can still bring them in, we just can't start with them. The issue now is that that garrison is quite big actually, and because our army's damaged, it's only a balanced setup, meaning we need to do this carefully to not take horrendous casualties. I'm going to use the live footage instead of the replay for this for reasons that will become clear. As we can see, I'm starting off by just waiting around for my artillery to show up. Meanwhile, the enemy army is just picking a spot and sitting in it. This isn't a regular settlement assault, by the way. These field settlements just give you an interesting looking field battle instead. To my surprise, the AI didn't bother moving after I started firing at them with my artillery. Normally, they just suddenly charge you if you open up on them with artillery, but in this case they stood there. So I used up all my ammo to kill a bunch of them, and then started doing some classic Shogun 2 aggroing tactics. And this is why I didn't bother with the replay, because this will take a while and ultimately isn't that interesting. Essentially, you can just move somewhat close to the enemy army, and part of the army will come away from its defensive position and follow you if you run away. So we end up with things like this, where one unit comes to fight my line infantry. Unfortunately, the ground here is really bumpy, so we have terrible line of sight on the enemy. They're currently partially in cover because they're on the backside of a slope, meaning it's hard for us to kill them, and their tiny unit holds on for quite a long time against our main line. Thus we might as well skip to later. They do die eventually, and then we just do this thing again. We can send our cav back and forth to aggro enemy units and make them come up to where our army is stationed. And then, even though the bumps are blocking a lot of our line of sight, looks like we can just about shoot the edge of this levy infantry unit. And they also have to get pretty close to get good line of sight themselves. I think line of sight's calculated from the middle of a unit if you give an attack order. so the whole line moves forwards until the guys in the middle can see things. But if you stand still on fire at will, the guys in the corners will see things earlier and shoot earlier, and that's why we're shooting them a long time before they start shooting us. So that's another line battle that will eventually go our way. That stuff's just going to rout, of course, don't need to kill too many of them. And they also had some melee units. We can do the exact same thing to them, only it's even more effective since they can't shoot at us on the way in. They get close, get shot, rout, and die. This continues until basically nothing is left. I had also set up with hidden units behind their armies, so to finish off the battle, I decided to strike with them at the enemy's archers over here, who had kind of set up knowing I was in the forest somewhere ready to receive me, so they do receive me. By this point, their army's so dead that they just rout instantly, and that's the end of the battle, so we end up winning that with really minimal casualties, just what we want to see, because we're not done yet on this island. We need to take over this settlement and then go back to the other side. That's going to take a while because again that lack of roads means we're actually several turns of movement away from even the center of the island. By the way, back home at Nagasaki, this is just happening over and over again. I'm not really showing it, but here's an example. We just constantly kill rebels when they appear. And right there, if you're looking closely, you might have seen my sharpshooters go from level 1 to level 6. And that's why we're doing that. We're just getting free experience. So our reserve force gradually being built up at home should be quite good by the time they're done killing those rebels an infinite number of times. We get the chance here to set up relations with the British. You can do this either with the British, French or Americans, and you get different bonuses based on what you pick. I believe British is the worst one to go for, because the bonuses focus on ships, and generally speaking, ships aren't that important. You're not going to fight many naval battles, and ones you do fight aren't that important. But, all that said, I just went with it anyway, because it was the first one that showed up, and I guess I didn't care that much. Now here's the real issue we have right now. Moving away from the Goto fields is hard because of public order right now, further delaying my chance to get over to the other side of the island. There isn't much I can do about it, so we're going to just sit here until the resistance to invaders goes away and some pro-emperor sentiment spreads. It spreads very fast in fields settlements, so it's not going to take long to sort out public order, but just another delay. So here we are a few turns later by the time I finally got back into the action with our army. Luckily the Fukue didn't really do anything, so they don't have much of an army to defend, but with their castle and their garrison they can match us right here. I was thinking of sieging them out, but it's also winter, so if I siege them out I'm going to take a bunch of casualties myself, and it's a long siege. Overall I wasn't very impressed with what's going on here, so decided to not attack and pull back, figuring maybe now is the time to actually get that reserve army I'm making and bring it over, because we need some more firepower here. Might as well cut to when they arrive, because nothing else happens in the meantime. Here we are with more stuff than we had before, and this time that balance bar looked fine to me, so I thought, well, we'll just take that win then. However, it's not that simple. The balance bar might have lied to me again. We saw this earlier in the campaign. We got annihilated in that auto-resolve. We did win, but with enormous casualties, a Pyrrhic victory. Normally impossible from that balance bar, so the mod must change how the auto-resolves work. Normally they're very reliable in this game. So, that's a shame. We've lost pretty much all of our melee troops in that auto-resolve. But that's okay, I'd rather lose them than lose the ranged troops, which are harder to get back. And of course we did win, so the Fukue faction is gone and the island is ours. We'll need to sit around for a little bit to control public order and stuff, but as soon as possible we'll want to get off the island with the best of our troops and start moving them back home to Nagasaki, where I've got more units in recruitment and more sitting around. We're going to form up the best army possible now with pretty much just modern units at this stage. I'm even recruiting some British infantry there, although they take 9 turns to show up, and I didn't want to wait 9 turns to put them in this new army, so here we are, less than 9 turns later, with a stack that's mainly just elite line infantry. Should do the job, and what is the job you ask? Well, we need to head out to get revenge for part 1. Oh, by the way, the rebellion thing has now stopped, because the crime levels went down at Nagasaki due to an agent I have there. But yes, here's what we're getting into next. Tsushima Attack Part 2. What I thought we could do this time is start the attack by hitting the main settlement and then defending it against the enemy's counterattack. Since they have now built up a decent modernized army, of their own, the enemy probably have the advantage overall, plus the defender's advantage to use, so we do need to be careful and basically try not to fight their main army in a straight up field battle, because that could be very dangerous. What I wanted to try here was declaring war on them the turn before I intend to attack, because I figured they might move their troops away from their main stronghold, such as moving them to the port ready to ship them out to attack me or something like that, and then I would strike. But spoilers, nothing happened. Here we are in the next turn, everything's pretty much as it was before. So instead, I do the same thing I did last time, just immediately land and storm Tsushima port. There's nothing here, and this time the balance bar isn't lying to us, we can take it pretty much for free. We could do the same plan that I mentioned here, in that we could sit here and wait for them to attack and then use the walls to try and gain a big victory. It's just not quite as good, in that the map is probably worse, and we can't recruit a bunch of units while we're sitting here waiting as well to strengthen our position. What I can do to strengthen my position is move some of the cav outside to allow garrison units to spawn if we get attacked, and the zone of control of the town is wide enough that units behind the town can't be reached by the enemy, so we're not risking a siege draw out here. What actually happens though is they just put both of their armies into ambush positions, actually so far from the road that even if I hadn't discovered them, I would be able to walk past them without triggering an ambush in this case, I believe anyway. So with them sitting there, now I need to decide, do I wait some more and see if they attack me, or do I go for the cheekier move, and that is to walk past their ambush and go for my original plan, that is to storm into Tsushima's main castle and then wait there to fight them instead. As you can see, that was the plan I eventually went with. There is a bit of a garrison here, so we can't just auto-resolve our way in, and of course doing this means effectively sacrificing Tsushima port, either to the enemy just auto-resolving it, or even if they don't, it will certainly rebel once everything's moved out, so we're going to lose it at some point in the next couple of turns most likely. Still, for now, we can get into hopefully some better real estate if we can win the upcoming battle. I can also kill very small amounts of the enemy by bombarding them. That may help if the enemy lose their settlement and can't replenish this turn. So here's the battle we'll be doing at the start of the next part. Not quite auto-resolvable, we just need to carefully play this out manually to minimise casualties, ready for the real decisive battles for the island that are to come.